one thing that I find very interesting about the this obsession that people are having over the meta glasses in buying meta glasses is, why do you have to show? You know, like in terms of creating people, like you're buying for what exactly? Like, why do you want to transform everything into this sort of content? What makes you think that you, like a regular person, must have a meta glass to like record your whole life? Who you think is paying attention to it? And I find so, because like the whole thing with the marketing with Kylie Jenner, and it's a very interesting topic, but I'm also very interested in the consumer mindset, in like, why do you think buying that, where do you see yourself using it? Like walking around watching a Netflix show, like a car is gonna pass all over you in the street.
Right.
What do you what do you want to capture? And
I'm really glad it's not 2025 anymore, Kyle.
I know exactly why. I think I know why.
Hip replacement, episode 67. If it was 2025, we would have had to address that. But fortunately, we don't now.
I still think that is a great number, and I still think it is as relevant. I also want to shout out Pope Leo, who continues to champion 6-7 while traveling the world. He literally is. Ben, you look confused, but he literally anywhere he goes.
I have to tell you is
he has been doing it. Somebody taught him, I think, in Vatican City, like some Catholic creator, and they were like, do 6-7. He was like, what are you talking about? So they quickly explained it, and then since then, that was in May or April. Since then, he's been doing it from the Pope Mobile, and it is amazing. I shout out Pope Leo.
I got to get on Catholic Twitter, I guess. Well, anyway, so it is, however, papal intervention notwithstanding, this is the 67th episode of the podcast. And our guest today is João Rodolfo, who is dialing in from the countryside in Brazil, possibly our first ever guest from the Southern Hemisphere, Kyle.
Yes,
I have to go back and check. But in any case, how did we get here?
Yes. So João is a strategist and writes the newsletter Signals, which is very cute and covers a lot of pop culture and culture in general and a lot of fashion as well. I feel like I've seen your work around for some time, João, and I was just like, oh, this would be a great person to have on. So here we are. I also really love that story you did not too long ago about the color purple, which I think is green is technically my color, but I think my soul color is purple. So that really resonated with me, and I do think it's having a moment. So welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I was very excited when I got the invitation. So yeah, thank you so much.
All right. Well, hopefully we can live up to the hype. João, I'm interested to know, you haven't specified exactly where you are in the countryside in Brazil, but you did specify you're not in Sao Paulo or in Rio de Janeiro. And, it's a reminder to us, particularly from our sort of northern centric or Western centric points of view, how massive not only the world is, of course, but also how broad and all encompassing our sort of English internet and American pop culture is to everybody, but also the ways in which it's experienced differently wherever you're at. I mean, how did you get into this realm?
I think because I grew up having very much early access to internet. I discovered myself through internet to Disney Channel. That's how I got introduced to the American pop culture. And I like to say, sometimes I'm kind of afraid that not talking too much about Brazilian pop, but more talking about the worldwide pop culture in general can be not being well seen to some of my Brazilian friends, right. But I like to explore the internet as a whole, So right. I like to talk about internet has no limit. So yeah, it's still an internet, I I just love being online. I love talking about pop culture and see everything that is happening online.
Totally.
Does that make you, what's the word? What's the word, Kyle? Not excessively online? Extremely online? Extremely online.
Yeah, sure.
Does that make
you chronically online? Yes.
Chronically online. There we are.
Chronically online. Yes. Born and raised on the internet. Yes.
Well, I was going to say, this is something that's come up living in Spain and talking to friends who are from various different parts of Spain, is that like there is this sort of non-geographic idea of quote unquote America's internet, which hypothetically is not technically all of the internet, but like the origins of the internet was a very American thing that sort of has grown and taken on regional identities, but it's still possible to be on America's internet wherever you are. And I think that sort of, it's to the point of, and I get this being someone who is on that internet, but not in America. It is a different type of fluency that like, it's very easy to your point of like having friends who are maybe from the region or the city or the country where you're from, being a bit like disconnected from that or disinterested in that. But then you having a sort of line into that, because it can, it can yield other opportunities, can yield other friendships. It can yield, it yes. brings you closer to not necessarily, yes, to another culture technically, but like it brings you closer to other things. Like sometimes that can lead to like getting work in another country or just other work in general, but also being able to just dialogue
here in this podcast.
Exactly. And I think that is yes. like, it's a real thing. Yes. And I think that we're going to get beyond, I think, it being America's internet at some point. Like it's getting to that.
Well, we're reaching the point potentially with AI where, by virtue of the Chinese language or the Chinese large language models, that potentially a different kind of internet evolves that is less American centric or less
totally, absolutely,
or less Western. But I guess what I'm interested in, João, is how how you think your experience of the internet in Brazil is different than it would be if you were a Brazilian sitting in Los Angeles, say. Is there a demonstrable difference in the way you imagine those two things being?
I don't know. Like early on in my career, as I started Signals, I tried to write in Portuguese. I tried to bring like my reference to my closest friends, and to build this audience here in Brazil. But at the same time, build a community is not easy, especially when they consider your taste too niche,
right.
And that was the reason why I started to write in English, make content totally in English, because I was like, okay, I want to talk with the whole world all at once, and that can only function in English for me.
Right.
Because I try in Portuguese, I try to talk about Brazilian culture, but there was a part of me that didn't relate to a lot of things. But also when I try to adapt to my point of view, also people are not that interested. I don't know why.
Interesting.
But then I just try, okay, I'll try another way. So now Signals is all in English and the response has been amazing. Again, I'm here in this podcast with you guys. That means you read my work and you understand what I'm saying. And that has been really positive for me. I used to be afraid of doing this change because I was afraid of being judged by people here in Brazil. But I was also getting very tired of not having a fully engaged audience here, besides my boyfriend and my closest friends, because that happens sometimes, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And then I was like, I want to know more people. I want to exchange more ideas. I want to see what people think about what I'm writing, besides just my best friend commenting, oh, amazing,
Sorry, João, I was just going to ask you, do you imagine then that, like, do you do this with the thought that it will take you elsewhere in the world at some point, or that the rest of the world comes to you through it? Because I think that's an interesting dynamic.
It's a tough thing, because like, that's definitely something that I see with people here too, is like I know many people who are in similar situations in Barcelona or Madrid, and like they're both very meaningful and worthy, but like it is a different thing. So like, I'm curious, where do you sort of sit on that?
I think for now, what I really want is to build a community, meet new people, and see how far my ideas can go, how far they can achieve new people and exchange point of views. I'm very interested right now in just like meeting people and see how they can relate to my work, to my point of view of things. And again, it has been very positive. Like, I feel like when I started to write in English and talking with a larger audience, I became more secure, because people started to come to my work more organically. Instead of me sending the links to my friends or doing this whole like, oh, a new post is out, go ahead and check. I don't have to do that effort anymore. I feel like, especially on Substack, I love Substack changed my life, because it brought me closer to this audience. And right now I still do content in Portuguese, but it's videos for my Instagram, and that's the way I can stay connected to the Brazilian audience.
Got it.
That's what I was going to say. Is like, I've seen your Portuguese videos, and like that I didn't know the full strategy, but like, that makes sense. Ben, sorry, you can say.
No, I was just going to different subject entirely, but I was just going to ask you guys as an aside. I feel like the recommendation engine on Substack has really tailed off a lot lately. Are you seeing that? Or is it just, might just be me. I'm not publishing as much. And so that may be that.
This is like, believe me, we're going to talk shop about Substack really quickly for anybody who's listening now. You may be a little bit bored, but we're going to open up the hood and talk about it, because like, something changed probably last fall, I think. And I've like messaged with a few people, friends, to be like, what the fuck happened? All my shit went off a cliff. And like, it has sort of like, it will go up every so often, but like, I can see like in my numbers, like a demon is like being fought. Like, it's like, I don't know what it is, but like, yes, that is true. But I because I can see like numbers going up, but like numbers going down. It's a weird, like, okay, like somebody is like put holding their hand on top of it. And it's like, okay, maybe you just tweaked the algorithm and now it's like, you're in jail. But like, I've talked this for a long time with friends, like about being in Substack jail, and that's how it feels. But we're all in it.
I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened to my Substack. I think God look at my work and say like, okay, now this is your time, because the number is going up and up and up. And sometimes I'm not doing anything. And I was like, okay, good. I found my algorithm. So, but yeah, it's something that it's changed so like often. There are days that are like, thousands of people come to my Substack, and there are others like dead zone.
Yeah. I mean, look, they have a business to run. They have regions to grow. They have subject matters where advertising or partnership or investment is going to be more attractive or less attractive, and so on and so forth. So there are all of these interesting imperatives that they have to manage as a business. And we, as grist for the mill, get turned into whatever that product is, sort of willingly. But the reason I ask is because on the one hand, there are all of these stories I've been reading today about how creators are the media of choice now for advertising buyers, which isn't news probably, but also that the space of monetization in newsletters and in parasocial media, generally speaking, is getting so much more advanced and so much more important that Substack, having figured out how to actually keep new audiences coming in or growing the participation with creators like João, who are in markets that they maybe don't know, have some commensurate topics, have some topics that are new. It's going to be really important. And I'm kind of fascinated to see how they all go forward with it, particularly now that they've actually brought advertising in and started a partnerships division and all that sort of stuff.
we'll see what happens. Like, I mean, we're watching. We're staying tuned. Substack
more to the point, my DMs are open, guys. So just hit me up, guys. Hit me up. I've got some really good ideas about advertising integrations.
There we go. Here we go. Anyway.
Okay, so
it's just funny on that really quickly is that like there's a few really big pushes that they've been doing. It's like, okay, well, all right, how's that going to work? Like, to use that meme, because it's like, is waiting for that to sort of like come to fruition. Same with this like AI thing push, which is like great, but it's also like, why is this on me? Like, it's like, I only see that in my post. Like, why are you asking me to check this? Because I know my shit doesn't stink. Why are you asking me? It's like, can we figure out how to maybe apply this in different ways, and or like maybe I'll add in like a where does this person sit politically item as well, because that can be really confusing. Anyway,
yeah, I suppose
it's funny.
I was just reading something this morning about how the danger of over optimizing is you create systems that are brutal, and so maybe if we decide exactly where Ben sits in the 2x2 in terms of his political affiliations or his cultural leanings or whatever the case, then it reduces Ben to a data point, which is not really helpful for anybody. At least
I think people should be able to know if they're looking at Nazi content or not. But that's me.
Fine. That's fine. I understand. That all being said, let's keep it moving to the other really salient news of the day, which is that Olivia Rodrigo is dating a man in finance.
Oh. Okay. And so is Nicole Kidman, by the way. But yes, what? Olivia Rodrigo dating a man. Yes, there was like, as that Olivia Rodrigo story happened, there was like I think it might have been even a Reuters story. I don't even know who, Reuters maybe too much. But there was like a shot of her and a man in finance kissing. And so like Olivia's of a kind of like artists, let's say, public figures in the creative fields, dating somebody who is in AI, private equity, those sort of spaces. And like it is coming, at least for Olivia, this story has become really big, and a big thing on Twitter, for example, because I believe there was a lyric in the new album, Ben, you might know, I don't, about like a man with a fake job, like don't date them or something like that, or just calling out that culture.
It's from her song Expectations, which for my money is the standout on the new record. And it's about adjusting her expectation, or about, sort of growing into expectations for people on the other side of a, let's call it, dating transaction. So yeah, she speaks out against dating people who have fake jobs. And so the criticism has been, this person works in AI and so therefore has a fake job. Debate that as you wish.
Go ahead, Joe. I have a lot of thoughts on this.
I think it's funny. Sometimes, like, I feel like celebrities, they're trying to distance themselves from dating other celebrities in order to not make buzz in their careers, but they're also getting more proximity to people in tech, into finances. And I think some of these people think that the fans, let's say, they're not paid too much attention, but there's this woman that she studied the Kardashians, and she talks about how sometimes Kim being surrounded by billionaires really draws attention to those people as well. And people start to like wonder, who is this person that the Kardashians and hang out with, these billionaires, And I feel like the Kardashians know so much about media, and I feel like they're like, let's say Olivia Rodrigo, let's say I think she's not that aware that people will investigate and go deep to who is this person she's dating with. And I feel like that's and I find that kind of funny when when people they start to get involved with people who finance and technology, and people really, they want to know more, and they will go deep to know what this person is related to. And I don't know, I think it's interesting.
I mean, at the end of the day, right? I used to tell people this all the time. Like at the end of the day, there are certain realities to all of our experiences in, a late capitalist world, right? We are all commodities at some level. We are all selling at some level. We are all buying at some level. And so it's sort of like, to my mind, I'm always a little bit bemused when we decide to slice and dice these people as being of a particular extraction based on their career or their nationality or their, age or their experience or whatever it is. Cause it's just like, I don't know. They're all just people. She's dating She's dating a guy. He's an AI guy. How does that indict him or, I think he's fine. I like him. I think he's okay. I don't know anything about him.
Okay, sure. I mean, I'm sure he's a pleasant enough human, I would assume.
He must be amazing for her to be dating him.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm on Olivia's side here. I think I have a lot of heart for Olivia, so I just want to see her. I want to see her, be proven right. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, there's an interesting tension with all this because, like, I do agree, Ben, that, like, we're at a point when, like, hypothetically everybody is and is not a public figure, is and is not a celebrity. Like, that is true. We're all a commodity, blah, 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 blah. But, like, it is specifically, and especially with that sort of Kardashian billionaire, like, proximity, and even, like, fashion world and tech world getting so close, is that, like, we are in the past, since 2024 for sure, I think have entered that space of, like, tech world now becoming Hollywood and, like, that being its own form of celebrity, all the way from, like, swagged out Zuckerberg to, like, Bezos owning the Met Gala to fucking Brian Johnson. Like, these are all now even less so that, I mean, they are entrepreneurs who are now celebrities, public figures. And, like, this sort of coupling is portending that, like, finance and the, like, MBA world is, like, a new world of celebrity, which, like, obviously we know that from, like, the whole entrepreneurial whatever. And, like, this is coming from a long line of this too. Like, if we think about, like, Lady Gaga's fiance and, like, even Scooter Braun and Sydney Sweeney, like, people like that, like the Tommy Mottola, if we think back really far, is like the manager turned husband or wife or whatever. It's like Sharon Osbourne. Like, that's a long trope of that is this. But, like, now I think what's different is that, like, on one hand, it's amazing that, like, they're not dating their same, like, high school clique. They're dating outside of the high school clique, if you will. But, like, the thing that I think really sort of, like, grinds my gears about it, it's the same thing as, like, Charlie XCX talking about marketing. It's like, now the artist is becoming less an artist and more the not art thing. And, like, that is what, like, drives me crazy, because, like, so much of life is the not art thing now. And, like, the art is so, like, the first thing to get chopped off, be it in education all the way to, like, the artist, I'm forgetting his name, Fake Mink, who was like, oh yeah, I'm just, like, rapping because I want to be able to do XYZ. And it's like, okay, like, no one is doing it for love of expression anymore. And, like, that is, like, an extension or, like, the tail of the, like, well, no one is literate anymore. Like, they're very related in my mind. And that's what sort of, like, annoys me. But that's also, like, maybe old fashioned. I don't know, but, like, I don't like it.
Yeah. I don't know. I think this is all, like, functionally the eye of Sauron that we all cast upon the world and decide we're going to zoom in on the things that seem most askew, as opposed to
seeing that's fair,
the world more broadly. Because I was reading the story about Florentina Holzinger, the artist who's representing Austria at the Venice Biennale over the weekend.
The breakout.
I would say she is not really thinking about marketing too much in making that work, but it is totally marketable and memeable, and it's absolutely modern in that regard, right? And so it's just sort of like, how calculated is that, right? Anyway, that's my question.
I mean, well,
how calculated do you think that is, right? And yet it's totally
in the case of Florentina, I think that's a really good question. I do think that it's less about the, like, her thinking about how marketable it is, and more of her being like, I'm a millennial, and, like, that being a sort of like product of that sort of like way of living and thinking. I think like that to me is like where my head went at with that is like, I get why it's appealing. I get why, you know, not why she's hot, but also like why the body is being presented in this way. It's like, it is an art statement, and it is also like a part of the performance, but it also is like, there is an awareness of the packaging of the body in this way with these performances will make it go further. And it worked. And like, it's great art. Like, I want to go see it. Will I be able to? Probably not. But like, that is like, the world has talked about that. And like, that's hard for the Venice Biennale to do. So like, shout out Florentina.
So I want to talk about a different kind of great art. But one of the most effective bits of I'm this is going to make me sound incredibly old and like ad bustery, and just I'll pull down my Naomi Klein from the shelf in a minute. But
Please.
the hack done on the bus shelter ads of Kylie Jenner's Meta Ray-Ban ads that showed her as a lizard person, as if from They Live, the classic Bruce Carpenter or John Carpenter film. Incredibly effective. Little bit of political intervention, advertising intervention, you know, culture jamming. What is it about those glasses that gets so under our skin? No pun intended.
One thing that I find very interesting about this obsession that people are having over the meta glasses and buying meta glasses is, why do you have to show? You know, like in terms of creating people, like you're buying for what exactly? Like, why do you want to transform everything into this sort of content? What makes you think that you, like a regular person, you know, must have a meta glass to like record your whole life? Who you think is paying attention to it, you know? And I find so, because like the whole thing with the marketing with Kylie Jenner, and it's a very interesting topic, but I'm also very interested in the consumer mindset, in like, why do you think buying that, where do you see yourself using it, you know? Like walking around watching a Netflix show, like a car is gonna pass all over you in the street. You know, right. what do you want to capture? You know, and I'm talking more about like the regular girls buying this meta glass. I'm not talking. We know we have this male concern regarding the type the male gaze wearing these glasses, but I'm thinking about the girls like, what exactly are you using for? You know?
Yeah. I mean, look, I'll taking the other side of the argument there for a second. Like, as a father who has watched teenage kids grow up, I got served a photo carousel of my kids when they were, I don't know, 6 or 7 yesterday, and it's very cute. They're very cute. I'm glad I took those pictures. I'm glad that somebody had the presence of mind to take them or to send them. And it wasn't always me. Sometimes there are other people's photos. But it's so you sort of imagine like I'm going to save this thing for some as yet unforeseen moment when I will want to reflect on the Netflix show that I'm watching right now. I tend to agree with you though, João. It doesn't the relevance and the presence don't equate most of the time.
Yeah.
I can see some use cases. Like, I do think that is a good example, is like, oh yeah, like I am playing a sports game. Sure. I am riding a horse or doing some sort of activity like that to teach you how to do it. Okay. Like, there's a guy on TikTok now. I think he's in Edinburgh. That's right. And he rides his bike with his son, and like, it's a very cute format. It's a front-facing camera, so it's not quite meta glasses, but like you see the sun, and like the whole time just like about the kid pointing at like, "Daddy, there's this. Daddy, there's it's adorable." But like, right, I could see that being like meta glasses content. There's a point where like they get off the bike and they go in a store, and like I was like, "Oh, did he switch to like meta glasses?" Ew, but like it wasn't. But like I can see how that works. I can also see like where it's going to go some point very soon, tying into like VR and fucking like OnlyFans content. That's a whole other thing we're not going to talk about. But like, there are use cases. But like, for most people, exactly to this point, it's unneeded bullshit. And like it's unneeded, and like it's unnecessary. And it reminds me of probably in the 2020s it started to emerge. Definitely in like 2023, let's say, is when the trend of like the AI note-taking companion, like Otter and all those things started to arrive, where like they would get added and like all meetings would be recorded. And like that was sort of like, oh great, thank God, we can go back and we can collect whatever if everybody forgot to take notes, which inevitably everybody remembered to take notes, blah, 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 blah. So now that we're like 6 years into this, I think that to me, and Ben, I know if you have experience in this too, like I'd be curious to get your thoughts, but like nearly 6 years into having almost a log of every fucking meeting somebody might have taken, those are just sitting there. And like, I think that's a really good example of like, nothing is happening to them. Like how often, unless I'm transcribing something, I'm not going back. Because like often I am taking notes, I do remember, and like, it's not an issue. But like, I think it's the same sort of like thing being sold, which ultimately is probably to get you buy more cloud space. But it's like, you need to document everything. But it's like, in reality, you don't. And it's like, simple photo will do, or like maybe writing down like, oh, remember how beautiful the flowers were on Sunday. Like you'll remember it. Like you will remember it. So like that, I think to me is what I think about.
We're interesting. It is we're reaching an interesting point of inflection, I think, where, so over the weekend, we were upstate and I went down to the grocery store where there's a bulletin board where all of the community, the stuff gets posted. And there was a poster there that just said, Anti-Vision, New Memories, 7 p.m. Saturday the 25th, dressed to dance.
Okay.
Now, none of these things meant anything at all to me. And I was just sort of like, this is clearly an event. It's a moment. It's a date and time. Something here is happening. And so I went home and I Googled, and through some amount of internet detective work, I was able to figure out that this New Memories is a venue, some sort of alternative venue upstate, not far from us, that Anti-Vision was the party that was happening that night, although there was no information about what it was, who it was, what Anti-Vision has to do with anything. And it was this sort of like suddenly mysterious, intriguing thing. Now, we were hosting people for dinner, and so we didn't go. I don't know what happened. Maybe it was great. Maybe it was terrible. Maybe it was a fake out. Who knows? But my point in bringing it up is that I think we're heading to a place now where, on the one hand, we assume that all information is available if you dig. And so you can be much more selective with what information you give out. And that's going to create a new kind of, if you know currency for groups small and large, right? And I mean, Cockroach Genta is almost an example of that, right? It's sort of like, if you're in on the joke, you can be part of the party kind of thing. But the flip side to it is that we can't really assume that everything is actually captured. And so there will be gaps in the record, which I think we're gonna have to figure out how to address. So anyway, that's my little spiel. If anybody went to the Anti-Vision party at New Memories in Parksville, New York, please let me know. I'm intrigued.
I mean, that whole ad thing and just like all of this surveillance, everything is making. I was talking about this to somebody on Friday. I've been thinking about this a lot. Is like the person who is like completely offline is going to become like a new like messiah. Like those sort of people will be like sought out for like a fashion campaign or this campaign to be like, this person has never seen a Loewe dress and they're gonna fucking wear it. So like that sort of thing is like going to take on more meaning and more value in a lot of ways, which I think is also crashes into probably in the Luddite conversation as well, crash into this like new temperance with digital whatever. Is like there's a lot of conversation we've had on this podcast about like being offline being the new luxury and that sort of thing, which I do think is true in a lot of ways. But I also think outside of shit like Brick, which I don't like, and like those sorts of tools that force you offline, that sort of being able to, and I think a lot of millennials have gotten here, and probably, Ben, you're like, we've already been here as Gen X. It's like being able to like tell the demon on your shoulder to post everything, telling them no is like going to become like the new flex. Is that it's like, no, I have self-control. Like that is ultimately going to be like the thing that will come back around to be like, no, I just don't do that because I can control myself.
I got it, but hold on a second. Let's just, João, how does that strike you? Does it, like, if Kyle stops posting everything, then you in Brazil no longer have your lifeline to Spain, right? Like, does that, what's the downside to that? I think we can all imagine the upside. What's the downside to it?
Like, I sometimes I stop myself to think about this whole touch some grass movement that we're discussing online.
My favorite.
But do you guys believe that's possible? Because I feel like even people that are doing that, they're still producing content because they need to show in order to validate their new hobby. You know, I see people online saying like, oh, today it was so fun because I stopped being totally online and went to this bookstore and read this Walt Whitman poetry book, but she still documented everything, and she's still like in the process of doing, she's still thinking about the content in the end of the day. So I find it very interesting when people say like, oh, we need to go more offline and go analogic and etc. But I'm reading about cyberfeminism right now as well, and this book called Glitch Feminism, and the author she talks about how the online and the IRL doesn't exist anymore. Like we can separate that, and for me that's just an example of that. But people are still building this narrative of like going offline and etc. But if I still think we're so doomed to this whole performance thing, and we're doing things thinking about the content that we're about to produce. I say that because here in Brazil we're very heavy users of internet as well. So I'm surrounded by people that are constantly creating content no matter what they're doing. Even like when they're sitting on their couch, they're filming themselves. I have a huge problem with people that film themselves doing yoga. Because doing yoga, because for me doing yoga is like, it's about like detach, you know, it's about close yourself to everything. And people are doing yoga and filming themselves like you're not doing it right. It's for me, it's weird, you know. If you're not a yoga teacher, that's okay,
right?
But I also think I mean, I would push there a little bit, and you probably haven't heard this story, but Kyle has heard it a zillion times. Like but this show is called Hip Replacement because I've had both of my hips replaced, right? One of the things that I could imagine filming myself going through a yoga routine to make sure that I was getting to the poses correctly, because I have to reset my physiognomy. Now I'm never going to post that unless
that's the difference.
Like I hit a real special headstand or something like that. But but I guess this is really like, that's the Rubicon that you cross is the recording of with the intention to post, to create proof of life. This is the dynamic I think we're really trying to untangle.
But that's like, I think is the key thing. Is like, I think like what another question for you, João, is like the age of people doing it. Because I think that's a really different thing too, is like the age is, I think, a big component of it. Is like, obviously I think younger people and people who haven't necessarily gotten that like discernment thing clicking in yet are like, oh, I shouldn't be sharing everything, which like I think definitely are older people, boomer people, etc., who are posting in that same way. But I think like there is something you age out of, and I'm saying that as myself, and I think that is something that a lot of millennials have gone through, is like, I post a lot more intentionally now because I mostly spend way too much time online for work and am fatigued by it. And number two, I'm just not interested in sharing it anymore. And like, I get my kicks from other things. And I think that also, even if I were to like stop posting online, there still would be stuff. And I do post stuff for work, technically, try to record stuff. But my personal life is not out there. So like, people don't, it's ironic that I'm very online and very I share a lot of my stuff, but like there's not a lot of the private stuff happening. And that's not necessarily intentional, but it also is a bit by design. I'm not interested in that. And I think that's very different than like me posting selfies while I'm writing today. Like that's very different. But like that I think is like a sort of something that comes with age, which like I think to that point of what you were saying, Ben, and also my question is like, are these younger people? Like, is that the big difference? Because like that posting desire, I think, is a very youthful desire.
Yeah, there's also another thing regarding this age thing and etc. Is these people now have this obsession creating finstas, and people create these finstas in order, like, you already have an account that you can post whatever you want because you have your free will. You don't have to create another account to be like your authentic self. Like, you already have an account, and Instagram already have the close friends.
So gluttonous.
And you already have the close friends sections. Yeah. And I know people. I'm surrounded by people who have 3 different types of accounts.
That's ridiculous.
So for they to post the same things, and I find this so weird.
I got to take the other side of that bet again, guys. I mean, the algorithms are so highly tuned that unless you spend all of your time curating a diverse content consumption habit, you end up getting the same stuff over and over and over again. And it becomes interesting or necessary even to be able to see things from the other side. That was the advice that Willa Bennett gave us, right, Kyle, when she was on the show, was like, create a Finsta so that you get to see another side of the internet that you won't get through your main feeds.
Yes.
And that is fair.
I feel like that's valid.
If there is an ingestive Finsta, I think that is valid. I have done that for sure. But if it is like sort of a like productive Finsta, meaning I'm just posting like for a select group photos.
Me without makeup.
That's what you did in high school 10 years ago. So it's like, that's ridiculous.
And it's funny because I feel like people in general, they don't take advantage of the internet, of the amazing things that you have online, or they don't do the effort to educate their algorithm. And I have friends that I have on mute on Instagram. I have lots of people that time to time I mute them, but in order to see other things, but in order to also give new information to my Instagram algorithm so I can see other things. And I feel like people don't do that. And I think that these people that are creating Finsta, these people that are going analogic, are the same. For me, they are the ones that will be buying the Meta Glass and produce.
I agree.
3,000 of contents that nobody asked for. And it's just they going to their work and going back home and, you know.
It's I don't know. I mean, you're exactly right. And like, there's this sort of gluttony is the wrong word, but there's just a sort of like, I guess this is a reminder to all of us, is like the friends who maybe post a bit too much and definitely post too much on close friends and who have the third Finsta, is like, make sure to let them know, I see you, I love you. I don't need to know everything, because like I can see you're clearly trying to connect, and you are connecting, baby. So like that is like, I think a lot of this is all, you know, coupled into that, like, I just want someone to let me know that I'm human in these really anti-human times. And like, I get that, but also like the solution is not buy Meta glasses.
It's during the cockroach Genta party.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's why I like to educate my algorithm as much as I can, just in order to have a better relationship with the internet, because there's so many things out there, so many content, so many different type of things you can consume, but you also have to create that environment for you, you know, so the internet can be useful, because otherwise you'll see a bunch of carousels about random things, or for people or from marketing people that you don't really care. But yeah, that's why I have an amazing relationship with the internet because of that.
But that's I think that we're really advanced users. It's like, we know to train it. We know to like give it that feedback. And like, I think like, again, like the sort of, well, I'm going to post intentionally or have that discernment to not post is the same thing as like, no, I'm going to tell Instagram or TikTok, whatever, I don't want to see this. Or like, I'm going to block this or mute this because like I'm trying to get a better experience. I don't want it to pull out the worst in me.
Yeah, and sometimes it's funny because friends of mine like, oh, did you see my last history? And I was like, what? No, that I remember myself that I have that. No, because I have them on mute, and I have to go there and unmute them.
I think we've come full circle. My presumption now is that nobody sees anything that I put up, and I don't see anything that they put up, and so we all just have to tell each other about it at the beginning again.
That is my assumption, and I swear by it as well. Because it works. If you don't post a lot, no one knows you never saw anything, and then it's like you didn't see anything, and then it's true, and then it makes when you see people in real life all the sweeter.
And that's why, and this is why we come together once a week to do hip replacement, is to remind each other of the things that we've been posting. Yeah. All right. Well, João, this has been really fun. Thank you for joining us on hip replacement. And where can the people find you in the Brazilian countryside on the internet?
My Instagram is João from the Block. It's an homage to Jennifer Lopez. And so it's João from the Block on TikTok and on Instagram, and Substack is Signals. And on TikTok, Signals also have a profile, so it's Signal as well.
Nice.
But thank you so much for having me. Like,
thank you.
It was like a huge experience for me. What a ride!
Likewise.
This is what we go for is the maximum novelty. Well, listen, everybody, look for Signals, and look for João from the Block, and look for Kyle on at the Trend Report on Substack, and me at Sick, and look for us next week with a new episode of Hip Replacement. But in the meantime, have a great week, and we'll catch you next time.